Good afternoon. My name is Muhammad Abduroaf. I'm a practicing advocate in the Western Cape, and today we'll continue with our previous videos dealing with child custody, child maintenance, and divorce. This video is cross posted to various other Facebook pages. If you'd like to leave a comment for me to answer it, please make use of the Our Lawyer Facebook page. That's where it will be live streaming. However, you may be viewing it from other pages as well. As you can see in our topic, today we'll deal with the issue concerning international travel for minor children. The reason for using that topic is that from the 1st of October, international travel will be a bit more lenient. People may be able to come into the country with certain protocols to be in place. However, visiting another country, obviously we have to look at what the laws say regarding visitors from South Africa. Be that as it may, as time progresses, it might be later in this year, towards the end of the year, or early next year, people may want to visit other countries, go on holiday, and the restrictions might be much lower. First things first, I would like to deal with the aspect regarding the importance of knowing that you cannot just leave the country with a minor child without the other parent's consent. The law requires that both parents who have parental rights and responsibilities of guardianship over a child should consent for the minor child's removal and return from the Republic of South Africa. Therefore, should you now decide, after being locked down in South Africa for a period of over 6 months, to go visit another country with your minor child, you would require the consent of the other parent. And obviously, for good reason, obviously, you would not want the other parent to go overseas without your consent with a minor child. And obviously, there is the issue concerning international child abduction, people stealing kids, people leaving the country without consent, etc. Therefore, consent is a very pivotal and important part of international child travel when it comes to minor children. So, if you do not have the consent of the other parent, what can you do? That is where people come and see lawyers. First things first, the law does expect you to obtain the consent, but if you cannot get the consent and you want to travel overseas with your minor child, unfortunately, you'll have to approach the court. The court will have to listen to both your side and the other side. If you are the mother, the court will have to listen to you and to the father and listen tentatively as to, is it necessary to travel? Obviously, you have a right to do so, but also listen to the other side's view as to why you may not travel with a minor child. With COVID-19 and with this lockdown and this pandemic, a good reason could be that you may not travel because the country where you wish to travel, there may be certain, the pandemic might be not under control, there may be certain issues in that specific country, etc. So that could be a good reason why a parent may refuse for you to visit another country with a minor child. At the same time, a more legitimate reason could be that he or she is afraid that you might not return with a minor child. Sometimes people do that. They say they're going overseas to visit a friend or go on holiday, and they do not return with a minor child. That causes a bit of problems because unless South Africa has an agreement with a country to deal with international child abduction and so on, basically the other parent can stay in the other country with the child indefinitely, and there's not much you can do about it. You may litigate it in the other court, in the international court where the child is. However, there's no guarantee that you will get any relief depending on the country and depending upon the laws applicable to that specific country. Therefore, if a parent still refuses, despite you having good reasons to go visit overseas, for example, visiting a family member, visiting a friend, going for a general holiday to a safe country, and that parent is being unreasonable, it is school holidays, the other parent had contact with the child for the entire school holidays, the previous school holidays, and this is now your opportunity to have contact and care rights to the child for the specific school holidays, and there's no legitimate reason therefore. Under those circumstances, the court will have to consider that, and more than likely the court will allow you to travel overseas with a minor child, having shown to the court that you have, made provision for accommodation, for the safety of the child overseas, and so on. And at the same time, the court might make put an order in place that you have to return the child within a certain period. Obviously, at the end of the holiday, that you cannot indefinitely reside in the other country. So I know many people are saying during the lockdown, as soon as the lockdown comes to an end, I'll be traveling overseas with my kids. Please remember, you require the consent of the other parent should he or she be a holder of guardianship. So who would generally be the holder of guardianship? It will obviously be married parents. Both parents will have rights of guardianship. It will be mothers and fathers, but fathers who was involved in the child's life. He paid maintenance, etc. He's actively involved in the child's life. He might not be married to the mother. Of course, divorced parents where the court made a divorce order. Parents who do not necessarily have the right to demand that their consent be required are parents that was never involved in the child's life from the word go, and he was never married to the mother of the child. He never acquired any parental rights and responsibilities to the child. But be that as it may, whatever the facts of the matter is, I'm certain that the immigration officials or the Department of Home Affairs, etc., they would require both parents' consent. If the other parent is not to be found and so on, that's a different case. But I'm certain under those circumstances, if the name of the other parent is on the birth certificate, they would require some type of proof that the other parent is consenting, or the other parent does not want to get involved at all because he was never involved in the child's life from the word go. But should you, have problems or difficulties in that regard, where the Department of Home Affairs says, I do not want to hear anything, I want the father to consent to the minor child leaving the country and visiting another country for holiday purposes, you will have to approach the court. Now, the scenario which I dealt with briefly was based upon the mother having care and contact, and she is the one that would like to travel overseas with a minor child. If, however, there is a father who has parental rights and responsibilities of guardianship, and he would like to take the minor child with him overseas for a holiday, the same principle would apply. Both parents will have to consent. The mother, in this case, will have to consent to the minor child leaving South Africa on holiday to another country with the father. The same principles will apply as well if the mother does not want to give consent for the minor child to leave South Africa with the father. The father will have to approach the court and convince the court that it would be in the child's best interest, number one, to travel overseas, but at the same time there's no concerns that can be voiced with traveling with a minor child overseas. As I mentioned earlier on, one concern could be COVID-19. Another concern could possibly be the mother is worried that the father might not come back. But under normal circumstances, if it's a generally visited country, I wouldn't mention any names here, but if it is a generally visited country, a safe country, and a country which people go to regularly for holiday and for relaxation, the court will definitely have to consider that specific fact. If it is a country where it is assumed that the parent, the father, will go to in order to, relocate or abduct the child under those circumstances, the court will obviously have to consider that. If, for argument's sake, the father, under these circumstances, was never involved in the child's life, but he has parental rights and responsibilities, he may see the child only for one weekend a month. During school holidays, he only sees the child most probably for a period of a few days, and the child is not comfortable with the father to be in the father's care for long periods of time. That could be a legitimate objection, me saying, where the mother says, the child is not used to being in the father's care for long periods of time. Here we have a situation where the father wants to take the child out of the country, away from the mother, where the mother may not be able to be available. Obviously, the mother won't be available immediately should something happen to the child. Under those circumstances, a mother can object and say, I feel it will be improper, or it won't be in the child's best interest for this father, who was never involved in the child's life for more than a day or two, on a monthly basis, now to have the child for a period of 3-4 weeks or 2 weeks in a foreign country to be cared for solely by this father. That would be a legitimate objection not to allow, not to agree at least, for the father to take the minor child overseas. At the same time, if we have a parenting plan in place that only allows the father to have contact with the child for 1 week, specifically per holiday period, he cannot now say, I would like to have the child now for an entire month. If, however, he feels that the child is comfortable with him and the child is old enough, let's say the child is 17 years old and the parenting plan or the order is quite old, and the child was with the father for quite extensive period of time. They went on holiday locally together. Let's say the father lives in Cape Town and the mother and they went on holiday to Johannesburg quite a few times for a long period of time, for 2-3 weeks. Under those circumstances, I cannot see why the minor child cannot now travel with that specific minor child overseas on a holiday where the child is comfortable and has been on holiday with that specific father for a long period of time. That deals with the aspect regarding international travel of minor children. As I said earlier on at the start of the video, the President announced that from the 1st of October, international travel into South Africa will be allowed with strict protocol. I would imagine that as time goes on, from January, February onwards, things will be more lenient. There will be less restrictions in place, and people will be traveling globally more than they are doing now. Therefore, to summarize, I advise parents that if you do intend to travel in the near future, speak to the other parent about it. Voice your intentions. If you are going to a specific country, get information, send the information to the other parent, let the other parent know it will be safe for the child to go, and obtain that necessary consent. If that consent is not forthcoming, and you will not be obtaining that consent, you will unfortunately have to approach the court, and the court can authorize the traveling of the minor child to a different country. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you have a lovely day further.